Kathy Crabtree, Canada's first female crown attorney.
Well, Clara Brett Martin was the first female attorney in the entire British Empire. She forged the path that I have followed.
I'm writing a profile on you. Woman lucks into success isn't exactly a headline that will attract readers.
I'm just being honest.
Your first case with the Crown is one of the biggest in Toronto's history. You will argue that a former city councilman should hang for the killing of 3 people.
That's right. However, Mr. Alistair Gordon will be lead counsel. I'll be assisting him.
You're an assistant?
No, I'm a newly appointed lawyer for the Crown.
What do you say to those who believe that women are mentally inferior to men and incapable of logical reasoning?
I would say that it is their reasoning that is illogical. Women are the equal to men in every way. And if they don't believe that fact, then, well, just watch me.
Tata here. Safe voyage. Union Station, sir. Oh, it must be Mr. Murdoch. I'm the landlord. Stanley Lester.
Oh, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. And thank you for accommodating me on such short notice.
Just moved to town?
No, I'm living on my own for the first time in quite some time, and my home is just very empty and quiet.
Well, you won't have that problem here. Follow me, sir. You're in 2C? Make yourself at home.
Thank you.
Detective Murdoch?
Yes. Do I know you?
No.
Oh, but thank God you're finally here. There's been a murder. Jonathan B. Booth. He lived in this room for about a year. Was it 2 years? I only lived here for 7 months. Well, 7.5.
And you believe this Mr. Booth was murdered?
Yes. It happened 2 weeks ago, just after I last saw him on Thursday at 4:15 p.m.
You saw his body?
No,
Then how do you know he was murdered?
he was gone.
Gone.
Well, he wouldn't just disappear without saying goodbye. No, sir. No, not Mr. Booth. Now, I told all of this to the constables at Station House 4, McLaren and Crookshank. Can't remember their Christian names.
It's all right, I know them.
But you're here now, so I can rest easy.
Actually, I am moving into these rooms because this is to be my home. For now.
Oh.
So if you don't mind.
Of course, I beg your pardon. Well, it was just, what about the murder?
I'll look into it.
So you'll be living here. With me.
So it would seem.
Didn't know the hallowed halls of power would be quite so dull.
Well, you are causing quite a stir.
I'd hate to see them when they're not stirred up.
So let's go over this once again, Chief Constable. Tell me exactly what Francis Stewart said to you. I've already told you. Tell me again. Chief Constable Stewart admitted to Councilman Vaughan's involvement in the murder of 2 women almost 20 years ago.
Just a boy. He's a good family. I knew the father. They told me that the burglary was a youthful lark, some sort of dare gone terribly wrong.
And what of the murders next door?
I believe them to be an accident. If I'd known it was murder.
He also admitted to letting Chadwick Vaughan into the cell occupied by Richard Tober, a man that was found dead immediately after that visit.
And he'll admit to all of that in open court?
He gave me his word.
Detective Murdoch, what are you doing here? Isn't it your day off?
Something you'll soon learn about me, Inspector, is that I much prefer work to leisure.
Then we have something in common. What's troubling you?
I'm moving into a rooming house, and the man who rented my rooms before me apparently has disappeared.
And?
Well, all of the neighbors seem to agree that the man, Mr. Booth, was planning to move to Hamilton at the end of the week, but was seen with a blue suitcase in hand and all of his possessions cleared out. Perhaps he simply left a couple of days early to save on rent.
Hardly a mystery, then.
The Crown will prove to you that Chadwick Vaughn took distinct and an intentional action to kill Elsie and Nora Haynes in 1891, to hide the truth of an affair he was carrying on. Furthermore, the Crown will show you that Mr. Vaughn killed Detective Richard Tauber while he was being held in the cells of Station House number 4 just last year, to keep quiet the truth of his guilt in those previous murders. Now, Mr. Vaughn's considerable power and influence in the city of Toronto has allowed him to get away with these heinous acts. None less than former Chief Constable Francis Stewart was under his sway and will testify to his guilt.
You best hope Mr. Vaughn is convicted.
Why'd you say that?
You won't be long for a job if he isn't.
Yeah? Beg your pardon? I'm William Murdoch, and I just moved in.
What do you want?
There is a tremendous amount of noise coming from your rooms. It's quite loud. What exactly are you doing?
I'm not making any noise. What?
Now, see here. What's that on your hand?
Leave me alone.
So you are investigating?
I was just complaining about the noise.
Is that so? Well, just so you know, Mr. Holland there, he is my prime suspect.
King's Counsel has prepared an expansive case against Mr. Vaughn, with over a dozen witnesses prepared to testify. And very shortly, we will be calling forth our first witness to the stand to...
Your Lordship, the Crown apologizes. Our first witness is not present in the courtroom. We request a brief adjournment.
Francis!
Someone's blocking the door.
Dear God.
Suicide. Bloody hell, Francis.
And there is no sign of foul play.
The letter was in his handwriting. He said he couldn't bear to testify.
He wanted to see Vaughn hang as much as anyone.
But he was too much of a coward.
The man is barely cold.
By his own choice. And now he's left our case to fall apart.
If this man was to testify at trial, didn't he provide a statement?
He refused. And I allowed it. Win the case, Mrs. Crabtree. Because if you don't, then it's on me.
You last saw Mr. Booth 2 weeks ago on Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Yet, the landlord, Mr. Lester, heard Mr. Booth here in the room the following morning at 10 a.m.
Walked past door at 10 a.m., heard banging inside, assumed packing his belongings. Slipped note under door to request final week's rent. No sign of note 2 days later.
And 2 days later, Mr. Booth, as well as all of his belongings, were gone.
And the previous evening, quicklime was stolen from the garden shed.
There's no mention of quicklime in the police report.
Well, that's because I didn't notice it until after the constable started ignoring me.
Oh, what is that horrible smell?
That? No, it always smells like that. I don't know what it is, but it's coming from 1C.
I'm boiling cabbage.
Yes, I can smell that, but I'm not entirely sure it accounts for all of...
Bye, Frank. Be done in a bit.
Your Honor, the Crown humbly asks that you offer us an adjournment. A key witness has taken his own life. Our case was to begin with his testimony and build upon its foundation. We need time to regroup.
Your other evidence and witnesses are available to you?
Yes.
Then present them to the jury. Court will resume at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Effie, I have some questions.
Now is not the time, Louise.
It will only take a moment.
Tomorrow morning, before court, my office, 8 a.m.
Wipe that smirk off your face.
I beg your pardon.
You killed him.
Stewart? I didn't do a thing.
You manipulated him into covering for you. And now he's dead because of the shame you brought upon him.
Chief Constable, I am an innocent man. If Francis Stewart killed himself out of shame, any responsibility for his death should fall at the feet of those who accused him and myself of things we did not do.
Mr. Holland in 2E and Miss Fink in 1C. I can say, after being here only one day, that neither is an ideal neighbor. And I have to agree, both are acting rather suspiciously.
Mr. Booth was rather persnickety, too. He was always in everyone else's business. Just like yourself.
I wouldn't consider myself persnickety. Inspector Choi.
I brought you a housewarming gift.
Oh, come in.
Oh, you have company?
This is...
Tippy Longfellow. I live across the hall.
Inspector Albert Choi. What's this, then?
This is to do with the case I was looking into at the station house.
The case of the man who moved out one day early. All right, then, Detective. I have no plan for the time being. Impress me.
Where do we stand?
We have plenty of evidence to convict Vaughn of the murder of Detective Tauber. Finger marks, eyewitness accounts, including your own.
And there's a recording of him confessing to it.
Precisely. The two murders from 1891, I'm not so sure.
There's the original police file, which was adulterated by Stewart on Vaughn's behalf.
But without Stewart to confirm that, they can say Stewart was lying.
There's a witness. The jeweler. He gave a police sketch.
20 years after events.
The sketch looked exactly like Vaughn.
There's no way such a distant account could be that reliable.
Well, the chief constable's testimony. He knows everything that Stewart was going to say.
Hearsay.
And he got Vaughn's confession.
Only for Tauber. He didn't deny the others, but he didn't admit to them either.
Look, this is not how the law is meant to be. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Vaughn is guilty, and the defense knows it too. Yet they will trot out every excuse in the book, every arcane stratagem to sink this case and thwart justice.
That's their job.
It is not their job. The purpose of our courts is not to win at any cost. It is to pursue the truth jointly and in good faith. It's defense attorneys who choose to pervert justice.
Oh, still bitter that I won?
I beg your pardon.
The sleepwalking case?
That has nothing to do with this. But yes, that trial is a perfect example. You lied before king and country to achieve the result you desired.
What I argued was the truth, to the best of my knowledge.
And you were wrong. You were wrong and you won anyway. Well, now you're going to feel what it's like to be on the other side.
And of course, there's the quicklime, and we know what that's used for.
Speculation. That's all this is. Now, let's focus on something more important. Where Shall we hang this?
Perhaps.
Peephole. Detective, have you been spying on your neighbors?
I have not. But perhaps Mr. Booth was. May I? Oh, this must be Mr. Lester, the landlord's room.
So, this Mr. Booth was a peeping Tom?
Sir, have a look. There is a blue suitcase matching the description of the one Mr. Booth was seen packing prior to his disappearance.
So, Booth was a peeping Tom, the neighbor finds out, gets angry, kills him, then hides his suitcase in his bedroom.
Yes. Yes, yes, that's it, detective! We cracked the case!
Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What's this?
Dear Tippy, no one told me Hamilton was so beautiful this time of year. Sorry, I did not get a chance to say goodbye. Jonathan B. Booth.
You heard from him, and you didn't tell me?
No. You don't understand.
I believe I do understand, Miss Longfellow. You lied to us. You have been wasting our time. You could be charged with filing a false police report.
No. This only arrived today. So do you see? It doesn't quite make sense. Detective, I was just having so much fun working with you. I'm terribly sorry.
We'll get him for Tober then.
I'm not prepared to argue the Tober case. We weren't meant to start till next week.
I know the case.
Well enough to try it?
Yes. I can act as lead counsel. I'll review all the details before morning, even if it takes me all night.
Very well. Yeah, but write down how you intend to proceed so that I can step in as necessary.
Of course.
I probably should have maintained my initial skepticism.
Sometimes we see intrigue where there is none, because we need a distraction from our own thoughts.
What thoughts?
Well, I can't answer that. But surely you could see why a man would concoct a fanciful story, a mystery to embark upon with a cheerful new friend from across the hall, rather than sitting alone in his rooms, watching films of people halfway around the world. I wasn't always a bachelor. My life used to be very different. Losing someone is an adjustment.
Well, I haven't lost Julia or Susanna.
Of course not. Not in that sense. But even if their absence is temporary, they're not here.
What is that?
What is that?
It has no odor. Quick line. Oh, I think we may have found Mr. Booth.
Where were you? 8 a.m., remember?
I was working all night. I barely had time to go home and get changed.
Well, you could have let me know. I'm busy too.
I'll make it up to you.
Counsel, is the Crown prepared to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. The Crown would like to inform the court that the charges of murder relating to the 1891 deaths of Elsie and Nora Haynes are being withdrawn.
And the third charge, Talbot?
We intend to proceed.
Very good, then.
Miss Hart, Inspector Choi, I've heard a great deal about you.
Charmed.
I'm wondering how a woman of your background came to hold such a position. It must be quite the story.
The same must be true of you, sir.
Indeed.
I see the two of you have met. Wonderful. What have you discovered, Miss Hart?
He's covered thoroughly in quicklime, as you thought. Quicklime desiccates the body, limiting decomposition.
Making it difficult to establish a time of death?
Indeed. Cause of death, on the other hand, is easier, thanks to the quicklime. He was hit on the head, a heavy object with a sharp edge. There was a lot of blood. His clothing was soaked through. I found this in his pocket.
The truth, sins you must know going on in there. Signed J.B. Booth. He was definitely planning to expose someone's wrongdoings.
Sounds like a motive for murder.
Where were you on the afternoon of December 9th, 1911?
Home, the office, the club.
You also went to Station House number 4 that afternoon, did you not?
I did.
Constable Tucker allowed you into the cells specifically occupied by Detective Richard Tauber.
That's correct.
A man who had provided information regarding 2 murders he had investigated in 1891.
Your Honor, we object to any discussion of murders for which charges have been withdrawn.
Your Honor, this is pertinent to the circumstances under which the victim was killed.
Proceed, counsel.
You were aware that Tauber was implicating you in the deaths of Elsie and Nora Haynes, correct?
Yes, I was.
And that is why you entered his cell.
Yes.
It is also why you struggled with him there, leaving your finger mark on his shirt button.
Yes.
And it is the reason you killed him.
No, I did not kill him.
He was found dead less than an hour later.
He was alive when I left.
You said yourself you fought with him, leaving evidence on his dead body.
I fought with him because he was threatening to go to the police about me. But we came to an agreement. I paid him money to tell the truth, that I had nothing to do with the deaths of Elsie and Nora Haynes.
You paid him?
Yes.
Then where is the money? No payment was found on him.
Perhaps the killer stole it. All I know is he was alive when I left.
Then why did you confess?
But I didn't.
In December of last year, you questioned Mr. Vaughn at his home, did you not?
I paid him a visit. We played snooker. I won. We had a conversation.
Did you discuss the murder of Detective Richard Tauber?
Yes, we did.
What did Vaughn have to say?
He said that he never intended to bribe him because he knew that it wouldn't work. So he killed him.
Objection, Your Honor. My client just testified that that never happened. This is secondhand information that clearly falls under hearsay exclusion.
Thank you, counsel. The jury will disregard the Chief Constable's last comment.
Your Honor, the Crown would like to play a recording of the conversation in question.
Objection on the same grounds.
This recording has already been entered into evidence. My learned friend submitted it just yesterday, believing it to be exculpatory in the cases of Elsie and Nora Haynes.
Francis helped me once, so I helped him in turn. And you both helped each other out with Richard Tauber. The Chief Constable arranged for you to visit the cells. You already know a great deal, don't you, Inspector? Francis made arrangements for me to slip in the back door. He thought Tauber could be silent with a bribe. I'm delighted to have had this conversation. And it's been recorded for posterity.
Now, wait a minute. That's not right. That's not what happened.
That's how I remember it.
You confessed. Someone's altered the recording.
Sit down, Mr. Brackenreed, and remain silent.
The Crown provided the recording, Your Honor. We simply listened to it and submitted it to the court.
Your Honor, foul play is afoot. This is not the complete recording as obtained by the police and shared with the defense by the Crown.
What are you suggesting? We all heard the conversation with our own ears.
They've adulterated it.
Is that possible?
A portion of the recording has simply been excised. It's easily done when making a duplicate.
This is a damning charge.
It certainly is, but we are prepared to prove it. The Crown has the original recording in our files. I can have it to you in 20 minutes.
So I was right. Mr. Booth is dead.
Indeed. We'll need to have another look at that postcard. It was obviously a fake sent by the killer.
Of course. Oh, this is very exciting. To think that I had it right and the great Detective Murdoch had it wrong. There you go.
Thank you, Miss Longfellow. We'll let you know if we need anything further.
Well, Detective, I made you something.
What are these?
They're pillowcases. The linens provided by Mr. and Mrs. Lester are always somewhat threadbare.
Well, I only have one pillow. I don't need both.
No, I already monogrammed both. Perhaps you'll have company one day.
No, I don't think so. But Thank you. Thank you.
It's not here.
What do you mean it's not here? It's in our case file.
I listened to it last night.
So you had it last night and now it's gone?
It can't just have disappeared. Maybe you just misplaced it.
I don't understand. This can't be.
So you've lost it. Wonderful. You spent the night before the trial losing our key piece of evidence.
Oi, Gordon, easy.
She was alone here when we left her last night. Was anyone else in the building?
No. I only left at 7:30 this morning. There was no one else here.
We'll ask the staff, but it certainly appears no one else has been in here, Mrs. Crabtree. Your negligence may have just lost us this case.
The handwriting on this postcard is similar to the letter found on Mr. Booth's body, but it's not the same.
Not the real McCoy, then. The killer must have traveled to Hamilton to send that postcard yesterday. Maybe because he knew you were looking into the case. Start with the landlord. Booth's letter threatened to expose a secret. I think it was whatever he saw while looking through that peephole.
When I first arrived, I saw Mr. Lester helping his wife into a coach and see her off. When you paid me a visit, I saw a much younger woman walking down the hall toward Mr. Lester's room.
An affair?
Possibly. And then there's Miss Fink. Whatever she's up to is causing that horrible smell.
What smell? That smell I'm smelling right now. It's cabbage. Some shame and marijuana.
Marijuana? Oh, yes, I've heard of it, but I've not come across it just yet.
It's becoming popular in California. Your neighbor would surely be evicted if anyone found out she was smoking dope.
Dope?
That's what they're calling it now. Apparently, it makes one fuzzy-headed.
Why would anyone want that? This neighbor making all of the noise, he's the one I find the most suspicious.
Maybe so, but when we were here yesterday, I heard that same sound.
Right. There's no way he could have gone all the way to Hamilton and back. Well, that's odd. This obliterator mark has no letter or number.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about?
Every postmark in Canada has this circle with information, time, date, location, and these wavy lines are used to mark a stamp as used or canceled, hence obliterator.
All right.
Inside, there is often a letter or a number, depending on which machine was used at that particular post office.
The fact that there is no number means...
Well, some postal locations only have one machine, so there is no need for a letter or a number. But I happen to know that Hamilton has 2 such machines, so any postmark coming out of Hamilton would bear the number 1 or 2.
How do you know this?
I subscribe to a quarterly publication on postal innovations. At any rate, this postmark is a forgery.
Meaning, the killer did not have to travel to Hamilton after all. It could still be your neighbor.
That's the secret he's been hiding. And the marks on his hand. It wasn't blood. It's ink. He's a forger.
Yeah?
Mr. Holland, Toronto Constabulary.
Stand back.
Plates, dies, pulp stock, everything needed to print counterfeit money. And cut it to size.
Booth? Who's Booth?
Your former neighbor, 2C.
Oh, him. What about him?
We found his body hidden in the wall between his room and yours.
I don't know nothing about that.
Where were you on the 18th between the hours of 4 p.m. and the following morning?
What day was that?
Thursday.
Oh, that's the day that they locked me up for passing a bad banknote.
It's not here.
So what? We have my word.
You heard him. The judge won't allow it.
There's other evidence.
Enough to argue the case, maybe, but to get a conviction? I don't think so.
I shouldn't think so either. I've spoken to defense counsel and the judge. We'll make it official tomorrow, but the Crown is dropping all charges.
So Vaughan goes free?
I'm afraid so. And I am sorry, Mrs. Crabtree, but I have no choice but to recommend you for termination.
One of the metal counterfeiting plates found in Mr. Holland's room could be the murder weapon, but no traces of blood were found on any of them, so there's no way to prove it.
Hardly matters. He was booked at Station House 1 the afternoon of March 18th, and they let him out late that evening.
So he couldn't have done it. What about the postmark?
Someone else forged it, or they had it forged, or went to Hamilton to send it, and your little magazine was wrong.
It's been a considerable amount of work to scrape away the quicklime without damaging the body. I need to be particularly careful with the hands, for example, in case there are any defensive wounds or scrapings under the fingernails.
Anything?
No, but he had a small object clutched in his hand, a metal trinket of some kind.
May I?
Of course.
This appears to be an ornate thimble. It's been engraved.
Thimble? That's odd.
I know of at least one person at the Regent Arms that does a great deal of sewing, and this thimble bears her monogram. Tippy Longfellow.
You admire her?
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
It's yours?
No. No. But I saw it in a shop window once. It's not my monogram, of course. I stopped to admire it one day when I was out walking with Mr. Booth. Maybe he bought this for me as a parting gift. Perhaps he was on his way to give it to me?
Why would he give you a parting gift? Unless the nature of your relationship was more intimate than you let on?
No. But I always suspected that he was sweet on me. It's why I was so sure he would say goodbye, and why I was quite worried about him.
Or it's yours and you killed him.
What? No. Why would I?
Because you're obsessed with Detective Μέρντοχ. You killed Mr. Booth to lure him in, to see if he was smart enough to solve your crime.
No.
How else would you have known about the tarp and the quicklime? Both were identified by you as being relevant to the murder before the body was found. How did you know?
Well, just hang on to your horses there. If all of that was true, why would I beg the world's greatest detective to take on the case and then lead him to the very evidence that would expose my guilt?
To meet your hero.
And hang by the neck forthwith?
Sir, though it is true, people have killed in order to get close to me. The fact that I moved into the Regent Arms was pure happenstance. Miss Longfellow here did not lure me in.
Nevertheless, put her in the cells.
It's a bloody hatchet job, but you'll be back on your feet in no time.
Maybe. Maybe not. I highly doubt the Crown Attorney's office will hire another woman anytime soon.
A recording can't just vanish.
It's impossible that Vaughan's lawyer or anyone hired by them could have broken in. I was there all the way until after daybreak. There wasn't a sign of anyone.
And no sign of a break-in. Maybe they got your keys somehow and waited for you to leave.
If they did, someone would have seen them.
What's all this?
We've been focusing on our suspects' alibis for the time of the murder itself. Now, the killer engaged in a series of complex steps to cover up the crime. Interviews with neighbors, gardeners, witnesses, all narrow down who could have performed each of the steps and their cover-ups.
The murder, obtaining the tarp from the basement, stealing the quicklime, and hiding the body in the wall. All right. And?
As you can see, our results are inconclusive. No one person could have performed all of the steps required of the killer. I fear we may be looking in the wrong direction.
Well, we know it's not Holland. He was at Station House 1. You seem decided it was not Miss Longfellow. The simplest explanation, then, is someone is either mistaken or lying on behalf of the killer, who has to be either Fink or Lester. Let's bring them in.
Right.
Told you to clean your hands.
It's ink. It takes a couple days to come off. Anyway, you're just putting more on them.
Fine. Index finger.
Mr. Holland, when did your hand become stained with ink?
A couple days ago.
The evening before last, your other hand was stained with red ink. How were you able to wash one hand clean and not the other?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come on. Off to the cells.
Am I mistaken? I could have sworn I saw something red on his hand that I even mistook for blood at the time.
Maybe it was blood.
Maybe. No, it wasn't. The first time Mr. Holland answered the door, his left hand was clean. The second time, his left hand was stained with red.
Meaning he spilled something.
Meaning Mr. Holland could have done each of the steps required of the killer. He just didn't do them alone.
Miss Cherry, when you were waiting for me this morning at the Crown Attorney's office, did you see Mr. Vaughn's lawyer?
No. Why would I?
Are you sure? Maybe someone he sent to break into the place?
I was there for nearly an hour, waiting, and I didn't see Vaughn's attorney or any other hired goons.
Did you see anyone at all?
It was early in the morning. The place was nearly empty. One person came and went inside.
Who?
Can't say.
What do you mean you can't say?
This person was one of my sources. They spoke to me with the promise of complete anonymity.
Listen to me, young lady. This isn't about protecting a source. Whoever it was more than likely sabotaged the Crown's case.
And my career along with it.
Sabotage?
Yes. Tell us who it was.
I can't. My sources are confidential.
You'll tell us, or I'll throw you in a cell.
And I'll publish my feelings about the new chief constable from behind bars. Goodbye.
Sir, the article. There are very few people with intimate knowledge of the case. If the culprit was a source...
We could probably figure out who it is.
Steward's suicide. It says he was wearing his kilt.
But there was no one else there except us.
And Gordon. He claimed I was the only one at the office this morning, but if he's Louise's source...
Bloody hell. He scuppered his own case.
I hear something. Should we knock?
There shouldn't be anyone in there. As I suspected. The reason Mr. Holland only had red ink on his hand the second time he answered the door was because the first time was his twin.
2 Mr. Hollands, both under arrest.
Mr. Booth was planning to expose your counterfeiting scheme. He'd even written a letter to the police detailing your operation, but before he could send it, you killed him. But not before one of you got himself arrested in order to create the perfect alibi. But why keep him in the wall?
We wanted to move him. Mr. Lester, he was in the room, trying to rent it straight away. He even took the man's suitcase as recompense for last week's rent.
How long were you planning it? You lived in that rooming house for nearly 2 years. None of your neighbors knew that there were 2 of you.
Mr. Lester charges by the head.
How did Vaughn get to you?
I beg your pardon?
Bribery? Blackmail?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We know you were here this morning. We know you lied about it. You stole that recording to sink our case.
Typical. A woman blaming a man for her own failings.
We will prove what you did. It's only a matter of time. You know full well I have the ear of the Attorney General. We'll see what he has to say about it.
Effie. I'm not here to apologize.
I didn't ask you to, Miss Cherry.
I was just doing my job.
At the expense of mine.
Would you prefer I didn't report the news, that I hung my sources out to dry?
I would prefer that you show some decency to a friend.
And if you were referred a case in which a friend was accused of a crime, would you turn your back on your job?
I would recuse myself.
If I didn't protect my sources, I wouldn't be writing about how Gordon is preparing to submit his resignation. Due in part to the swirling rumors of bribery reported in my newspaper.
If it's information you want from me, you won't be getting it.
Not about that. But there is one claim I need verified. Is it true that you've been reinstated in the Crown Attorney's office?
No comment.
Chadwick Vaughan. Look at you, a free man.
Justice chooses its own path.
Everyone in this room knows the truth. They might smile at you in public, but believe me, they know. You'll be hearing the word killer whispered behind your back for the rest of your life.
I don't much care what people whisper. In fact, if they think I'm a ruthless killer, it may end up being to my benefit.
We'll see about that. Not everyone in this city is a coward.
Good luck to you in your career, Chief Constable. Just remember, the man who put you there is dead. And you've made more enemies than friends.
I apologize for locking you in our cells, Miss Longfellow.
Are you kidding me? I was arrested for murder by Detective Μέρντοχ. Ooh-wee. What a story.
Well, if we hadn't discovered the Holland twins' ruse, it might not have had a happy ending. Were you not worried about possibly facing the noose?
No. No, not for a minute. The great detective always gets his man. And to think I live right across the hall from him.